What's up again there, guys? Brian here, the 3 Topics Gamer, here to share with you another one of my worst to best ranking tier list style videos to share with you guys today. For this particular ranking video, as I'm sure you can tell from the title, I'll actually be going over my own personal ranking of the majority of the Need for Speed games. Now, Need for Speed is currently my favorite racing game franchise of all time, with one of their games being my all-time favorite racing game of all time. And there have been a lot of games, so I thought it would be cool for me to just do a pretty standard ranking of just all the games that I've played. Now, this list is going to start from 2003 to 2021 because the first Need for Speed game that I actually played was Need for Speed Underground. So I didn't really get a chance to play any of the older PlayStation, the original PlayStation Need for Speed games that came out before then. But that's still quite a lot of Need for Speed games. Now, like always, if you do happen to enjoy this video by the end, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep track of me and all my future videos, including future, worst of best ranking tier list style videos. And if you happen to enjoy this type of content and would like to see just me in general, I would really appreciate if you could also watch me on Twitch, because I am streaming every Wednesday and Thursday from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., just in case you're curious. So as we jump into the ranking, as we have right here, I have it separated into 5 different categories, starting from I absolutely loved that game, to I enjoyed it, to I thought it was okay, to not a fan, and did not play. And there aren't many of those. So let's get the ones that maybe not even sadly, but I didn't happen to get a chance to play over the last number of years. So starting off with, I have never even heard of Need for Speed Nitro. I didn't play that one. What else didn't I play? Need for Speed World. And what else didn't I play? Need for Speed No Limits. I think those, now that I look at this list, yeah, these are the only 3 that not only have I not played, I've never even heard of these games. So let's start off with the ones that I'm not a fan of. I am not a fan of the Shift series. So both Need for Speed Shift and Need for Speed Shift 2 Unleashed. I'm just not a style of that type of games. I mean, I'm more to like the typical street racing aspect, and those like try to make them seem like they're like professional driving. So they're trying to kind of take elements that make it similar to something like Gran Turismo, and I think that's the one thing that I've always liked differently from Gran Turismo and Need for Speed. I always thought Need for Speed was more street racing, and Gran Turismo was more like professional. Not quite like NASCAR or anything, or Formula One, but just, I thought that was keeping them separate. So whenever Need for Speed attempts to kind of cross into, I would call it Gran Turismo style, I typically don't end up enjoying it all that much. So that's why I have to put Shift and Shift 2 as not a fan of. So let me see, what else am I not a fan of? I think also Pro Street. No, I take that back. You know what else? You know what? I'll tell you. Actually, I take that back. Need for Speed Run. I'll put it above a Shift because I actually played that. But Need for Speed Run was an interesting concept because it was like a cross country race where you started like, I believe, on the West Coast, and then you had to drive to someplace on the East Coast, and it was like a multi-day race, but I think that the dumbest aspect that it had these like quick time events that had you get out of your car and have to like avoid the cops or avoid being chased. And I always thought that kind of like just stopped the momentum. Like it wasn't like a general race. It was simply like you would like start like at a high like position, and then as you would drive through like specific sections, you would just have to get as far. You have to go as many places as possible. But it was never like different races. It was just one extended long sprint race. And I thought it was interesting. It was an interesting concept. It just didn't work for me. And I think out of all of these, that's the last one that I just wasn't a fan of. So as we go into the okay tier, I'm just get this one out of the way. Most Wanted, or the newest version of Most Wanted, which I believe came out in like 2015, if I remember correctly. I mean, it has some moments, but it doesn't hold a candle to the original Most Wanted, which I will be speaking on that much later because I have quite a lot to say about that one. So I'm going to put that in just okay. I'm going to follow that up with Need for Speed Payback. I mean, it was a pretty run of the mill Need for Speed game. Didn't really do anything too extraordinary in my opinion. I'm gonna put it also with Need for Speed Heat. I appreciate that we kind of semi went back to our street racing origins. I just think that there were just too many things about that game, just mechanic wise, I thought just didn't work. There were definitely some key mechanics that all Need for Speed games had that this one didn't. Um, I definitely like the whole aspect of needing to race between in the day and then building up your heat in the night. That was interesting. I thought the police force was way more aggressive than I think it should have been. And the fact that your car could only take limited damage and you could only repair it 3 times during one pursuit, I thought was stupid. I mean, if you're going to have me be chased by the cops, like, unless they, like, seriously damage my car or cause me to, like, lose an aspect, like lose traction or, maybe get hit with some sort of EMP wave, as I believe other Need for Speed games that have police cops chases like that can do. You shouldn't have those aspects. So I would put that one in just okay. Another one that I think I would put in okay is Need for Speed Carbon. Now, Carbon is actually the direct sequel to Need for Speed Most Wanted 2005. I just think my issue with Carbon is that it had a much heavier focus on drifting. Now, I'm not a fan of drifting. I know that it's an important element that has been a part of the franchise, and I would say Need for Speed, I want to say Underground 1 or 2, because there was definitely drifting in that game, all in those games also, but I don't think it was as heavily pushed as it was in Carbon, which it was like a key element, which is why I wondered why they even called it Carbon to begin with. Maybe if they were going to go for that direction, they should have just called it Need for Speed Drift. And I believe that was around the time, I may be wrong, but for some reason I feel like that came out around the time that Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift came out. I may be wrong about that, but that's just the feeling I got from that game. And I believe that is, and I think the last one for okay, I think is Pro Street. I'll put Pro Street at the top. Pro Street tried a few things. I mean, I would say it was a much better version of Shift that also kind of tried to go into that, to get away from the whole street racing aspect. I don't think it worked as well, but it was definitely a step up above the Shift game. So I think that's why I would put it at the top of the okay tier. And I think that's about it. Yes. Okay, so as we go into enjoyed, I'm actually going to start off with Need for Speed Undercover. A lot of people that I've looked at didn't really like Undercover all that much, but I really did. The whole concept is it actually kind of has that whole concept of the first Fast and Furious movie, where he plays an undercover agent who has to infiltrate a street racing group, and then you need to build up your rep with them, and then when you've learned enough information, then you kind of work to get each of the individual members caught. So in a way, you're kind of like a mole that infiltrates these gangs and then takes them out one by one. That allows you to get access to a MacGuffin at the end. But yeah, I've really enjoyed it, and this story was actually pretty well done. I thought it had a great collection of cars to enjoy and a great amount of customization. So yeah, but yeah, a lot of people I've spoken to didn't really like Undercover, but yeah, I was very much into it. Next, I'm going to go with just typical Need for Speed. This was probably the last Need for Speed game that I really, really enjoyed. It definitely took it back to its street racing origins from like the Underground series. I would say that in terms of pure feeling, I would say this Need for Speed was probably the closest we got to going back to that to the Underground era. Wasn't quite as good as Underground, I would say. But I think the story, customizations, and the overall atmosphere was closest to that. It also had a great soundtrack. It had a pretty solid story. It was corny. It was kind of corny. But I had fun. There's a lot of corniness even in some of the best Need for Speed games. So yeah, that's where I would put that one. But I would definitely take that up to the next level with Need for Speed Hot Pursuits. Now I don't like. Now apparently they remastered it, but so I'll put both of them up here. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, very very good game, very good. Just it allows you to play both aspects of playing as the street racers and the cops, and that was just executed incredibly well. Definitely one of the stronger games that incorporate the police aspect of it. I'm not sure what they did in the remastered, but it was definitely a very good game. And then I'm going to put Need for Speed Underground at the top of the enjoyed list. This was the very first Need for Speed game that I ever actually played that made me a fan. It was hardly anything in terms of plot, and that was okay, but it was just simply like, you're just the new guy in town, and you're trying to build your rep, and they give you these really crappy cars, and then you have to go through a series of races. I mean, it was just the very, very bare minimum, straightforward racing game. And that's all it really needed to be at that time. It didn't need to really do anything too special. And that's why I think a lot of people still enjoy it even to this day. Now, as we go into the love section, I am definitely going to go with Need for Speed Rivals. This is, in my opinion, this is what Hot Pursuit was, but cranked up to an 11. This was a great Need for Speed game. It was almost a little bit more almost warfare, because if you're playing against the cops, there's just so many tools. I mean, it's actually it's but like this, Need for Speed Rival is the only Need for Speed game where I actually enjoy playing as the police more than the street racers. I mean, there's a good balance of how you handle each different types of races, but I think the police and the type of vehicles that you have access, because there's a wide collection of vehicles that they have, including attack tactics that really make it fun to use. But yeah, I would definitely put Rivals as definitely in the loved and my favorite of the Pursuit era. Next, I gotta go with Underground 2. This took everything that Underground did well, and this made it kind of open world in a sense. It probably has my favorite soundtrack of any Need for Speed game. The customizations, the look, the way that it kind of continued the somewhat story that was start in Underground, I thought was great. But I would say without question, Need for Speed Underground 2 probably has the best amount of customizations of any Need for Speed game that I had played up to that point. And the fact that it was the first one that kind of got to get the open world aspect right, I thought was great. So that's why I would put Underground 2 in the love section. But without question, my favorite Need for Speed game of all time is also my favorite driving game of all time. And it has to go to Need for Speed Most Wanted. Okay, this managed to do a number of things that was just amazing. Number one, it not only kept the traditional Need for Speed, the kind of the street racing aspect very, very true. All of it takes place during the day, which is, unheard of. Because if you're going to do all this street racing, you would never want to do it during the day. You would want to do it at the night. So the fact that it broke away from that, away from, say, the Underground games, I thought was great. Another thing was the story. I like the story. You basically play as a new driver who comes into town. You run into the Blacklist, which is a pair of 15 top tier street racers. And you lose your car, which is my favorite car of all time. Which it was actually that game that made the BMW MG3 GTR my favorite car, my dream car of all time. Like, if there was any car I want to actually own and drive in the streets, that's the one. So you lose your car, and then you have to challenge each member of the Blacklist. Now, in order to do that, you have to win certain races. You have to pretty much get your reputation up to a high enough level to challenge them. And then when you challenge them, if you manage to beat them in like 2 or 3 races, you can actually have this little mini game that allows you to have a chance to pick up the pink slip and take their car. And every time I've played this game, I've managed to successfully do that. And so what ended up happening was, each time I took a Blacklist member's car, I would just take that car and use it to challenge the next Blacklist member. And that was unheard of, because it gave me a preset car that I could actually kind of slightly improve over time, that made it able to take on the next Blacklist member. And so by the end of it, it was just great seeing that I had every single Blacklist member's car. And I thought it was great. And I thought the ending was spectacular. I hate going into spoilers, but pretty much you manage to get your car back. All the Blacklist members get arrested, and every cop in the city, every single cop, every single rhino, which is pretty much just a heavy-duty SUV that is designed for pure ramming, just spike strips, helicopters. The main police chaser, whose name is Cross, who has his own elite group of like racers that come after you. Like everyone is coming down on you, and you managed to pull off probably one of the best escapes ever. It's a shame that kind of, I mean, it continues in Need for Speed Carbon, and that gets dealt with in like the first like 10 minutes, which I was heartbroken when that happened, because it was just crazy. I was just like, oh my god, I go through all that and Most Wanted just for this to happen at the beginning of Carbon. That really broke my heart. But yeah, there's just so much about Most Wanted that I just absolutely love, and I actually got the game on my 16th birthday, so that might make it a little bit more special. But yeah, God, I just love Most Wanted. Like that's the game I would love to stream. I actually have that on not only my PlayStation 2, but my PlayStation 3. So maybe if I find a way to stream that, I'll do that for sure. So that is my ranking of all the Need for Speed games that I managed to play and almost not play between 2003 and 2021. If you guys are a fan of Need for Speed games, how would you rank this list of games? Share a list with me and everyone else in the comments down below. And like always, I want to thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you all next time.